like today was a day that the narrative was dominated by the hawks, those that weren't too keen to add extra stimulus. I mean, Kaplan seemed a little open, but what are you getting from the messaging out of the Fed right now?
I think it's misplaced to think in terms of hawk versus dove in an immediate sort of sense. I'm actually on the dovish side, and I think the Fed's going to cut in September. It's a done deal. The bigger issue is the Fed's in the midst of a huge strategic review of how it goes about its business, and that is absolutely profound. And I think that's what Chair Powell will do tomorrow, is lay out the parameters of what the strategic review is about, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. I think I know what he's going to say.
What do you mean?
Well, they have to do two things. Number one is they have to market their reaction function. The reaction function is their paradigm for how they respond to incoming data. And they have been profoundly wrong, quite frankly, on the inflation side for a decade. So they need to market their reaction function, in part because the market relies upon the credibility of that reaction function. And then the second thing they've got to do is how do they fit into the firmament of democracy when your black swan risk is deflation, not inflation. So therefore, they've got to think in terms of where do they fit from the standpoint of independence of Congress, the executive branch, and the fiscal authority. So I think it's a profound two-pronged strategic regime shift that's unfolding right now. And I think that's what Chair Powell's going to talk about tomorrow.
It's all a little,
wonky, I know.
I mean, the market just wants to know if it's going to ease again in October and December.
They're going to ease in September.
Okay, and then what?
Mr. Powell can't tell you thereafter, but he can tell you something far more profound, which is the direction he's going on those two factors. His reaction function, accepting that we can live down here with a 3 handle on inflation, that it's entirely cool. He's got to do that. And then he also needs to talk about in the next recession, what will be the degree of cooperation between the Fed and Congress or the fiscal authority. And bottom line is in the next recession, the Fed will properly be giving up a fair amount of independence because it needs fiscal help in the next recession because we're too close to zero, both for inflation as well as their policy rate.
Yeah, but that's counting on Congress somehow in the next recession to actually do something that would be constructive.
Well, essentially, to count on Congress doing something in the next recession would imply let's prepare the game right now, which means that the Fed needs to proactively suggest that in the next recession that it won't be the only game in town.
When you say on the reaction function front that he has to communicate that the Fed would be okay if inflation were to go, you said to a 3 handle, right?
No, that we can live down here on a 3 handle on unemployment.
On unemployment.
And he would love to have a 2 handle on inflation.
Got it.
Do not underestimate the fact they've missed for 10 years, and political independence for the Fed is to cut off the black swan of hyperinflation. In actuality, the black swan is the other direction. That requires a rethink.
Both of those things suggest a leaning further in the direction of rates lower than not.
Absolutely. Both of those factors point unambiguously to the fact they need to ease. It's a matter of timing and pace. And the fact that Mr. Trump wants it to happen doesn't mean that Mr. Trump is wrong. He actually is right, even if uncouth in how he expresses his viewpoint.
And why is he right?
He's right because our economy can grow faster without inflationary pressures. That simple.
I mean, you went so far as to on Power Lunch a few months ago say that he's not wrong and she should speak up because his presidency depends on Fed policy. I mean, do you still feel that way? The attacks have gotten so frequent.
Yes, I do. Again, I think he's uses too much bombast. He's uncouth, not polite. He's a bully. All of that is true. But it's also true that the Fed is not the fourth branch of government. It was created by Congress, and it's reasonable, particularly when he's dealing on the international plane, that he feels hamstrung by the fact that he's the head of state but has no influence over monetary policy. So he's bellyaching, but he's actually bellyaching for a good reason. So I'm not a Trump man, but I have to say, when he's right, he's right.